Yeah, hi Romy, can you hear me?
Hi, Peter. Yeah, you sound great, and we can see your screen.
All right, then we'll just dive right in. Um, so the effort that is being led here by D3R is part of an effort that began maybe 15 years ago with discussions between Jim Cassatt and the user community of the computational chemistry general area. And the activity has resulted in a couple of requests for applications that have been competed and funded. And those have been based on a couple of assumptions that came out in workshops that were held about 12 years ago. And the first is that the field is in fact data limited. Second, that there exist large amounts of useful data in pharmaceutical industry files, and that if we provide a means for that data to be released in a useful way, industry will in fact make that data available. That the community will utilize that data in a way that is productive in testing and improving the software that we currently have for drug design, and that it will result in better software being available to make better predictions and result in more efficient drug design processes eventually. We've tested those assumptions, and I'll come back to this in a minute. I do want to, no matter what else I say, thank those who have participated in this by applying for the grants. Thank the pharmaceutical industry for its contributions, and thank the community participants who have participated in the benchmarking activities. So let's move on to what has been then going on. The first phase was an award that was named as the Community Structure Activity Resource. Heather Carlson at the University of Michigan was the PI. That effort did have a lengthy ramp up, and I think that's basically to be expected, that anytime you start a new large-scale effort, it takes time to get things rolling. There were a limited number of data donors during that first 5-year phase. There were many delays in getting data transfer agreements signed. There were few material transfer agreements. There was also a high expectation on what that resource could accomplish in the way of replication and extension of data sets. This proved to be slow and costly. The data quantity and quality of the data that was deposited was not as great as expected, and I think that's a case of unrealistic expectations that we had going in initially. We thought we'd get many more data sets, much larger data, much more precise data, and thermodynamic data, which I don't think we've seen any of rather than just KD information. They did run 4 benchmark exercises, each of which resulted in a special volume published in Journal of Chemical Information and Modeling explaining the benchmarking activities and the results in summary form, and then individual articles very similar to what we're doing today, highlighting specific groups' efforts. We recompeted the resource at the end of the first 5 years, and the second round award went to Romy Amaro, Michael Gilson, and Victoria Fair, who's since moved on. I think they had the benefit in part of the prior contacts and effort of the CSAR group, also revised expectations of what they would do and what the money would be used for. They also, I think, have benefited by including a couple of additional efforts, the sample challenge, for example. Data started to flow a little more from industrial and also academic donors such as Barry Stoddard and David Baker. I think the establishment of the close connection with Stephen Burley at PDB makes a big difference in how efficient this is going to be going forward. They've run a workshop and webinars, have outreach activities, workflows to enable people to participate more easily. They're going to tell us shortly about this continuous evaluation of ligand pose prediction evaluation. And the results of 3 benchmarks have been published now in the Journal of Computer-Aided Molecular Design. I need my next slide to go forward. There we go. Assessment of the field. So where are we now? There's a nice review article written by Heather Heather Carlson with her ideas based on CSAR. Romy mentioned what have we learned on the D3R website, and I've simply copied what they have put there. And I think this is a good summary of the state of the field. The question, I guess, is where do we go next and how do we get there? In particular, I'm sorry, we're dancing around. NIGMS has been investing funds in the area of protein-ligand interactions, molecular modeling for quite a long time. This is a particular portfolio of grants that I'm counting up here. On average, 45 competing and non-competing awards per year over the last 10 years for an average of 8.6 million per year. That's not all of the money we put into molecular simulation, just that which is most focused on the ligand rather than the protein as a whole. So questions we need to ask ourselves, and that investment goes back, you know, in scaled back dollars, of course, but goes back to the mid-80s. Are we investing in the right kind of research? Is the community learning from these benchmark events? Is it making course corrections as a result of the observations that are gleaned from the benchmark? And it's the closing of that loop that I don't think we have any good feedback on yet. Should this effort be continued, and in what ways could it be made even more useful? Those are all questions that NIGMS will need to answer for its own purposes over the next 2 to 3 years as we think about what to do going forward. And feedback on those questions, on this activity, and anything else that comes to mind is welcomed. You can send email to this email address. You can give me a call at that telephone number pretty much anytime, and I'll be happy to discuss your ideas. That's all.